Video and photo backlogs can leave you overwhelmed, exhausted, and burnt out. We've been there, and our fears of outsourcing stopped us in the past. Can you find an editor as invested in your brand as you are? Will other photographers and filmmakers we network with look down on us for not editing everything on our own? That fear of outsourcing can be detrimental to your career. That's why we love our partnership with Weditor. Their attention to details with not only our work, but also their care for their clients through all steps of the outsourcing process lets us fully step back from editing and focus on what we love, knowing our work is receiving the attention it needs. More than just editing, Weditor is passionate about demystifying the outsourcing market. Follow Weditor on Instagram at we_r_Weditor for free educational tips, tools, and resources to guide you through the insanity of today's editing market. For an even deeper dive, follow Weditor's blog at weditor.com/outsourcing.
Welcome to the We Got You podcast, a network curated for wedding photographers and filmmakers that dives deep into the strategies and tactics to transitioning a side hustle in the wedding industry into a full-time, thriving career. We're your hosts, luxury wedding filmmaker Emma K. Films and luxury destination wedding photographer Hannah Brook Photography. It wasn't too long ago that we picked up our cameras for the first time, having absolutely no idea where it would lead us. Years later, we're traveling the globe for beautiful destination weddings, built our dream lifestyles, and run multi-six-figure careers. It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy, but it is attainable and so worth it. And we're ready to teach you our strategies. Covering a variety of topics from both our first-hand experiences and reputable guest speakers' insights crucial for business growth, we're exploring the art of marketing within your niche, discussing effective ways to attract and retain clients, leverage social media, and build a strong online presence, and so much more. We're not shying away from talking through the challenges of the wedding industry and offering realistic solutions to navigate them successfully. We emphasize the importance of networking, establishing meaningful relationships with clients, and continuously honing one's craft to stand out in a competitive market. This is the We Got You podcast.
Good morning. Hello, We Got You podcast. It's another Monday. It's another new start to your week, wherever you're listening from. We're so thankful that you're here to join us. We are here with special guest, Micah Cook. He's a photographer who we have been so stoked to have on this podcast. We've actually had a lot of you in our Facebook group requesting to talk to him about reaching your ideal client through intentional branding. Micah has done an insane job. I've been watching him throughout the years with his branding and how he interacts with his clients. If you don't follow him on Instagram, we're going to get to all those details, but you need to be because his work is incredible. And so is he. So Micah, thank you so much for being here. And we're so excited to have you. How are you doing today?
Hey, Emma and Hannah. I am, first of all, just beyond honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm just super honored to hear my name being put out there from people that want to hear from me. So anyways, an extra level there. I am doing great, based in the East Coast. Weather's been absolutely beautiful, which just always helps kind of having the off season, like cheer things up a little bit. But no, I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, no, we're so excited to have you. And remind me, where are you on the East Coast? Where are you based in?
So I'm based in North Carolina. I kind of tell people I'm based in the closest airport hub, but North Carolina, but only about 5% of my work is here. So it's just kind of my living quarters, and then elsewhere is work.
Yeah, I feel like I see you on Instagram all over the place, all over the country, all over the globe. And I was like, honestly, I actually don't know where he lives. But that all comes down to being really good at branding and marketing yourself where you want to work. So I love that.
We're here for today. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know I'm going out to LA. I'm going out to LA this weekend, and I was posting about it. I'm like, oh, yay. I had 5 people reach out. They're like, oh, I know you lived here, but can we do something? I'm like, no, I don't live there. I just come out so often. So anyways, I need to start investing in a house out there.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially having to come from literally across the country.
Exactly.
But Micah, before we kind of kick off this episode and dive into branding, we would love to know just more about you, more about your backstory for anyone who's listening today who doesn't know kind of just your story of how you started and how you've gotten to today. We'd love to just kind of dive into that. Feel free to give us all the details and give us your Instagram handle for anyone who's listening right now so that they can follow you ASAP.
Absolutely. So with all my socials, just because I'm going to forget, it's Micah Cook Photos. So it's pretty much consistent throughout the socials and everything. But yeah, so I have been photographing weddings for, we're coming up on about 4.5 years now. So I myself am 25, just put that out there because I think a lot of people think where you are in the wedding industry reflects just solely experience and age. But as we all know here, that is obviously not true. There's so much more that goes into it. So I'm 25. I've been doing weddings for coming up on 4.5 years. I was born and raised East Coast, like DC, obviously a great place for making connections, some high-end weddings, but by no means was that where I was in the industry at the time I was up there. I myself got married back in 2021, so I'd already begun doing weddings. I feel like, as a lot of people can relate, it kind of starts as photography as a hobby. And then one person that's like, oh, great, now you can do senior photos. Now you can do couple photos, family photos, kind of the whole thing. And it just got me to one day where I'm like, I want to photograph a couple. And then from a couple, I'm like, I want to photograph a wedding. And it's an endless circle to kind of break into the industry unless you know someone, which isn't always the case. So it was slow to get into, but as I've said, I think any wedding professionals today that begun their career during COVID, I think they really blossomed and grew. Obviously a different story for people that were professionals that went into COVID, but kind of coming out of COVID, things just grew exponentially. Around 2021, I was graduating college, taking on weddings. My wife and I were planning our own wedding at the time. And I really began to take on a lot of travel. It was a crazy year. We learned what burnout was real quick. So then the past 2.5 years, we relocated to North Carolina from Virginia to North Carolina. Not the biggest change, but doing that and then taking on a lot of destination work. I really started to understand what the wedding industry was as a whole, and the different levels of weddings there are, and how to target different weddings and create a vision for myself, my brand, and what I would love to accomplish. And sure enough, that's just what this past really year and a half has been, kind of projecting for what 2024 and 2025 is lining up to be. So yeah, now here we are, a luxury destination wedding photographer, and that's the majority of my story.
Wow, that's incredible, especially just hearing like with COVID and everything. I feel like it's so relatable to just kind of figuring out what that looks like for you and what your business looks like and kind of where you want to go with it. You mentioned after college. So what did you go to school for? Did you kind of already always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur or creative or?
Absolutely. So I originally, it's fun because I went to a small, well, not really small, but a private Christian school in Virginia. And part of the private Christian school kind of whole bubble is that there's couples that know each other, get engaged and married all over the course of like 6 months. So anyways, I was in a great spot for beginning a wedding industry, getting into the wedding industry. But no, I actually went for, I graduated with a couple different business degrees. One was entrepreneurship and then the other project management. Ironically enough, I left not knowing how to do taxes, how to file an LLC, like all that fun stuff that you need to know. But I left with a lot of great connections and having kind of a little home base to really begin my career in. So I did one film photography class, which just was enough to kind of pique my interest in film. But apart from that, everything else has been primarily self-taught and just a lot of trial and error over the past few years.
Wow, that's incredible, especially hearing how like your degrees and everything like kind of merge into it and merge kind of into entrepreneurship, but cracks me up that you did not learn taxes because I feel like that is one thing nobody ever actually learns until you are in it trying to do it. So absolutely hilarious. But also I know that you talked about like the last couple of years really kind of honing in on your branding, you know, what you're doing and everything. And even, I mean, if you guys are already following Micah or are looking at his Instagram right now, like you can just tell you have such a beautiful photography style and you brand yourself so well in the industry. Yeah. And I mean, we can see it through every piece of your business. How would you really like describe your branding and style right now?
I love it. This is kind of the fun question because there's so many words when it comes to style that just float around and I feel like lose meaning because they're just said without any backing. So for instance, the word documentary, I want to reflect with that so well. It's hard to because you see how often that word is just thrown out there, either from couples looking for it and not necessarily knowing what it is, or individuals that say, this is what documentary is, but it's still a very more posed and stiff day that they're actually capturing. You know what I mean? So I would really love to stick with the whole natural lighting, natural color and documentary aspect of it. Kind of my method going into it is working in the high-end luxury realm. You are dealing with couples that are pouring so much time, money, effort, whether it's them themselves or their, full-time planners into a wedding. I don't want to stray from that at all. It's all about the experience. It's all about the details. And that's really where I need my style to reflect. So if you can kind of picture it this way, I just want to be a fly on the wall the entire day. If I need to step in, I can. I have that experience and that knowledge, but I really want that to be reflected in my style that, hey, I'm there to capture every single second and cent that was put into all these details. And as far as the branding aspect of that goes, well, I want my work to attract people and my vision of my work to attract people. Ultimately, and I feel like both of you can relate to this, I want them to come to me being like, oh, I want the Micah Cook photography experience. I don't care the cost. I don't care what obviously I would prefer them to love my work, but like, I don't want them to care about the work or care about this. I want them because they want my experience. And I think that's one thing that we'll probably really dive into is how branding as a whole really reflects around like individuality and the personal aspects of it. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Okay. Love it.
It's incredible too, like how much your branding comes across through your work and not just like what I think people typically think that cliche branding is of like colors and specific words or a mission statement where it's like it is reflected so much in your work and kind of focusing on like lessening that branding gap and like what it looks like throughout every single aspect of your business.
Yeah. No, honestly, I so agree. And I feel like too, when it comes to branding, so much of it goes so far past just some of the visual stuff. But like Hannah said, like creating a small branding gap where, especially with your wording, I think a lot of people might have something that looks really visually appealing, but then the way they speak or the way they write, you're feeling something completely different. So I would love to know, Micah, like obviously like we've looked at your website and it's so beautiful, very, very minimal, especially with serving the luxury market as it should be, just very simple, minimal, elegant feel to it. How do you go about the wording that's put on your website? Because especially coming from a younger age, it can be really easily, I think even like in my experience, to sound young sometimes. So I'd love to know kind of like, how did you choose the wording that goes onto your website to really market yourself on brand as this luxury wedding photographer?
I really, really appreciate that you noticed that and then pull that out and I put that in a question, partly because English and literature as a whole, like two of my worst subjects in high school. And so one of my like specific challenges when designing this new website, of course, I'm going to have to give a shout out afterwards to our amazing website designer. She literally did it in a day, was that I wanted to focus on a lot more of what my style is and how I can reflect and relate to my clientele than, come to get to know me, come to get to know what I offer. Kind of reflecting in the whole, I don't want people to come to me for me is I don't want them to come and see my whole pricing guide and then kind of piece together with all the a la carte options like this, and this, right? I know that works for people and that's great, but I spent a lot of time kind of analyzing and studying some other photographers and wedding vendors that I truly admired. And one of the big things that I noticed consistently in a lot of their websites and branding as a whole, targeting these high-end luxury clients, is simplicity, right? They're coming because they want you. They're coming because they want your work. Show them what your vision is. Show them how you're going to help them. Tell them what they need through your website, right? Connect with them on the words that they're looking to incorporate into their day, the specific details that they're going to be looking for that you'd love to capture. I wanted to really focus on that. So part of it was I didn't want to have the full introduction of, for instance, my name's Micah. I started photography this year, whatever. Now, a huge part of that is, I'm not going to say I'm lazy, but a huge part of that is I will completely forget to go back and change that year following, right? And like, I've been doing weddings for 4 years. Like next year, I'm going to have to change it. I will forget. And I feel like there can be a lot of faulty information in there, but what's not going to be faulty is sharing what my vision and brand is. So part of it is that first little blurb that I have on my website really reflects what in my mind is the best definition of documentary. And part of that is every color, every little light beam, the feeling of the breeze coming through. Like I want to capture it. So when you look back at your photos, you feel that again. And in doing so, I get to give a little description of, hey, all I offer is a single all-inclusive collection that is going to be custom built and tailored to you. So just imagine this experience, imagine this service and this style all being incorporated into this one package for you. Okay, great. There's my whole website. Now inquire. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of my attack.
Yeah, no. And I think it's so important, especially to like specifically talking about the luxury market. I used to think that it was all about the design and really creating this brand that felt like there was a lot going on. And I realized, and I think it's so important that you draw inspiration from those who do inspire you and who are doing it, because I learned so quickly that it is about minimalism. It is about having something that just looks, and it almost is like this like empty feeling, but it's because the focus isn't on the design of your website. It's not on how intricate and detailed your logo is. It is solely about getting right to the point on what you offer and your work and who you are and your vision. And I think it's so cool seeing that throughout your website, because you do just see, you get to the point. I am within 5 seconds. I'm like, this is his work. This is his vision. Great. I want to inquire. Amazing. You know, like it's very to the point, and I really like that.
I appreciate that so much.
Does your current client delivery system feel unexciting, limiting, and boring? Maybe you're still using good old Google Drive or Dropbox to deliver your clients' wedding films. If the answer to these is yes, it's time to level up your video delivery experience with VidFlow. VidFlow is a pay-per-use online platform that allows you to deliver fully branded websites for each of your clients. While being incredibly affordable, VidFlow is accessible on mobile, desktop, and smart TVs with included long-term hosting so that your clients can truly enjoy the entire experience when receiving their wedding films. When I first found VidFlow, it was such an easy switch that truly benefited my business substantially. With so many incredible features and options for customization and personalization, VidFlow continues to wow my clients time and time again. You can find VidFlow on Instagram or visit their website at vidflow.co. Use our code WGY20 for 20% off a yearly premium membership and level up your client experience today with VidFlow.
I know you talked about too earlier about like how getting started in the industry, it's very much like, you know, almost like a circle of, okay, figuring out, you know, who you can shoot, what you can shoot, knowing people, and really like getting yourself into that market and stuff. And even just the last couple of years, how much everything has changed, especially with COVID, getting out of COVID, and then kind of everything adjusting back to a new normalcy and what that looks like and everything. And with your business going through all of that and growing your brand and everything, what would you say like are your, I don't know, like a few ways that you have been more intentional with your branding in the last few years? Like what would you say you're focusing more heavily on, or you have been more intentional with when it comes to your branding in any aspect, website or other pieces of your branding?
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the biggest things has been being more particular with the work I take on. And then part of that is the work that I show. I think it's, from a client perspective, if you're photographing their wedding, that wedding's going to be posted. That wedding can be beautiful for them, and I can be so happy about that. But if I need to continue to show the detail that maybe some weddings have over others, showcasing that detail to push me in that direction. Now, when it comes to the weddings, part of it is everyone has, at some point, typically deals with imposter syndrome. And if it's not imposter syndrome, then it's doubt, because there are periods in everyone's career, whether it's beginning, middle, or end, whatever. Some years may be busier than others. Some years you may not see an inquiry for a little bit of time. Some years it may be, 5 inquiries a day. You don't know. Part of it is being okay with work that does not work out and understanding a better opportunity may come along, or, hey, here's an opportunity for me to work on my own branding, create that vision board, which kind of leads me to my whole second point is about a year and a half ago is really when I started having that understanding of, I need to create this vision for what I want to photograph. People find themselves somewhere in this whole pyramid of the wedding industry and stay kind of complacent. And they're like, okay, I'm just waiting for that next opportunity. I'm waiting for someone to come along. If you can't show that in your brand, or at least show that in your vision, then your branding or your vision are never going to change. So it's like you have to really push yourself up this ladder. And one of the huge things with that is creating a vision for my brand. And I tell people this in a lot of my like coaching and mentorships and stuff. I'm like, as soon as we get off a call, take 2-3 days, brainstorm, search your TikTok, your Explore page, I don't know, and write down a specific vision. And I'm talking like dress designers you want to work with, specific flowers you want to see in a place, a rental company you want to work with, venues, and then give a description of why you want to work at this venue. I'm like, you need to create a specific vision for your brand, because a brand without a vision isn't going to go anywhere. So I think really being selective with some of the work I take on, but then also creating a vision to then reflect what inquiries and what work was coming in. And then I think I'd say maybe the third thing, which is kind of just overlaps over all that, is really working a lot on my language and confidence. And this is, it reflects with what we were just saying regarding the website, but being very particular. You don't have to cater to 2-3 different groups of people, right? I tell people this, working in the high-end luxury weddings, dealing with clients that have 6-7 digit budgets for their wedding. But then my wife and I saying, hey, if we were to get married again, do a whole like wedding ourselves, I'd probably stay under 50K, right? I'm like, I don't have to match them, but just because I don't have to match them doesn't mean I have to cater towards both. So in my language, with my social media, with my marketing, all sorts of stuff, I need to reflect with the crowd that I'm trying to bring in. And that's been a huge point of language and I guess confidence that I've really been working on.
Yeah, no, I think that's so cool. Just talking about the language aspect of it.
Yeah, well, even the confidence too, because like as you were talking, I was like, I feel like there's just so much like trust in your vision and trust in the brand that you've created, where I think so many people, one of the things that they do wrong is they try to like overdo it and like, oh, I'm not getting any bookings, so I've got to do more, I've got to post more, I've got to share more, where it's like, instead be intentional of what you're sharing. And I feel like Emma and I, we've talked about that on several of the last podcast episodes about being so intentional of what you're putting out there and what work you're sharing and like where you're trying to go with your business instead of overdoing it. And I think a lot of people almost lose that trust in their brand and vision, where they think, oh, I have to do more and put more out there and have more on my website, so that it's almost like, that's what they're almost like used to when you first start your business. You're always putting just your work out there to get seen. Whereas now it's not just, okay, it's not what all you're putting out there, it's the specific pieces that you're sharing instead of how much you're sharing.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I love that, because I feel like so many people, it is like the easiest advice to give is to only show what you want to market, but yet it's hardly ever taken, even in like mentorships that we've done and working with other videographers and photographers. It's like going through social media and it's like, your ideal client is not what you are showing on your Instagram. Why are you showing it? Why are you showing it? But it's like, it is the hardest thing to mentally get over, because you're thinking, well, what if my client thinks this? Or what if someone like is upset that I didn't show their wedding, or I don't have that portfolio to showcase my ideal client? But it's like, you will always continue to book what you market. So it's so cool talking about that, and even talking about just the language aspect of having confidence. You have to have confidence in yourself. Like, I felt like for the longest time, it was like, fake it till you make it. I mean, really, truly, because it is scary and it is nerve-wracking, and you're always going to feel imposter syndrome and you're always going to have doubt, but you have to provide this sense of confidence regardless of the market you're in, whether it be destination weddings, whether it be elopements, whether it be the luxury market, because at the end of the day, your clients want to know that you're confident in the job, in the work that you're going to provide them. If they don't feel this confident language, they're not going to feel like they can trust you.
I love that so much. And kind of what you just said, honestly, piggyback off that, the fake it till you make it aspect. I was actually thinking about this earlier because so many people will claim a title over their position, over where they are in the industry, just hoping that it kind of sticks or hoping that it pushes them there.
Yes.
I don't think that's I'm not opposed to like putting something on your business and pushing yourself in that direction. But there's a difference between just claiming it and hoping and pushing yourself in that direction. For instance, having this title of luxury high-end wedding photographer, truth be told, you're always booking anywhere from 3 to 18 months out, typically. And I know that it's a huge range, but sometimes these high-paying weddings happen within months. Sometimes they happen within 2 years. You never know. Oftentimes, you're booking 6 to 18 months out. So 2022, 2023, these were a lot of the weddings I was completing from before I even understood a lot of this, before I changed my confidence, before I changed my language, before I understood the market, right? So 2023, I was still closing out a lot of weddings that were, in that anywhere from that $60,000 to $130,000 price range, but still claiming and calling it this because I know for 2024 and even 2025, I have clients that are bringing on full 6-7 digit budgets for their wedding, and being able to push myself in that direction. And what's fun is now we're this year and I get to start showcasing a lot of that work that's going to demonstrate what I've been preaching and talking about. And kind of what you're saying is, I'm not the best at this, truly. If I feel like there's a time where I'm like, I don't have anything that I want to post on Instagram that fully shows my vision, shows where I want to go, put yourself in a position. I'm all for like creative shoots. I'm all for styled shoots. I'm all for free work when it is something that is going to push you in the direction you need to go to. So for instance, if you want a styled shoot, understand how these high-end markets, this branding may be reflecting so much more attention to detail than the couple. Find these styled shoots that are going to be like Great. They just put $5,000 into the single table, showcase how you take photos of this table, and then show that on your work. You know what I mean? I was never the best at that. In my head, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go to TikTok and I'm going to make videos on stuff I want to talk about. And therefore, couples are going to see my brand, my vision, and be like, that photographer aligns with my vision. Great. Match made in heaven. You know what I mean?
Preach. I am literally loving this so much because, I just feel like it's said but not often explained how to do these things. And people like really need to listen, like genuinely.
Yeah.
So like kind of speaking on that a little bit more, Mike, I would love to know for those who are out there listening who just maybe feel like their brand isn't where they want it to be, regardless of whether they're in the luxury market or whether they're in the elopement space or destination weddings, just talking about branding in general, what are 2 pieces of advice that you would give them to really start to elevate their brand? What should they look at or look for?
I don't want to just repeat myself, but I think the first thing which I challenge my own, like when I do educational stuff and coaching calls and stuff like that, the first thing I challenge them is to create this vision board. As a photographer myself, and I kind of think this goes to the whole style brand thing, I have never been a bandwagon person. I cannot do trends. It's just something like one of the things right now, bows. If you love bows, incorporate them into your wedding. If you don't love bows, don't incorporate them. Don't just do it because it's a trend. You know what I mean? Like I have a bride this year in Italy. She's having bows everywhere because she has worn a bow in her hair since she was like 3 years old. I'm like, great, go for it. Don't care what Vogue, Harper's Bazaar says, whatever, just go for it. But a lot of that is going to be create that vision for what you are looking for, right? Don't just fall into the trends. Don't just fall into what other people are doing. Don't just do something that you've seen 100 times. Be like, oh, this is something I want to photograph. Start curating your eye to the new, like, interesting details that you think are going to reflect well with your work, that you catch your attention, right? So I think creating a vision board is going to be step number 1. And I'm not just saying like a Pinterest board, Canva, whatever. Like just write down, these are specific goals that I have. These are designers of dresses I want to work with, XYZ. Now, talking about that and taking that to social media is a huge step because you are then, saying, kind of preaching out what your brand and vision is going to reflect. Couples may or may not know this right now, but they will, that a vendor that has the same vision as them is going to be the vendor that helps make that event so special and captured so beautifully. I would say that's kind of number 1. Number 2 would be, there's going to be times that you need to take a leap and you just got to do it and stick behind it. I remember my first like decent price jump, which at the time was, I don't know, like $1,500 of a price jump, whatever, which ironically, sometimes I will do a $3,000 price jump over the course of 2 months. You don't know it. It's with demand, supply, whatever, all the fun stuff. This is who I'm marketing to. You change prices whenever. Sometimes you just have to do that and you have to stick behind it and just change your confidence to reflect that. Because as we said earlier, I guess I'll give my super quick example. I only offer a single collection. And when I started doing that back in 2021, so I guess 2.5 years ago, when I started doing that in 2021, I offered it at a $4,000 price point, which granted, $4,000 is $4,000. That's not little. That's also not much when looking at photography and stuff like that. But I was not confident in that. In my head, I'm like, I'm price gouging these people, all sorts of stuff. But I also knew what it was going to cost for me to offer this collection. In all of my responses to couples, and this is a very extreme example, I would say it's $4,000, but here's everything that's included, or but let me tell you why it's worth it, or stuff like that. That word, that variation of the word but, my reply rate, let alone my booking rate, was down the drain. The second I realized that and I started to change that, and I changed my confidence to, here's $4,000, here's what's included. Even if at the time people were inquiring with half that budget, they would switch it immediately because they knew what they were getting was my confidence behind my work and my brand changed completely. In a sense, that investment price point has absolutely skyrocketed, reflecting in who I'm able to cater to and everything. But a lot of that has been my confidence and just saying, hey, this is what it's worth. Take it or leave it, because if it's not you, there's going to be another couple that will. Do that nicely. Don't just be blatant about it. Do that nicely. But yeah, I would really say take that leap and put your confidence behind it. Work on that. It might take some time, and then create a vision. Sorry, that was really drawn out.
No, I absolutely love that though, because I mean, when you think about it, like everyone listening right now, you're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. But it is hard. Like that is not an easy thing to kind of get over. Like we were talking about earlier, there is that like mental block sometimes when it comes to like, okay, I have to back myself, or I have to hold back from posting all of these things or sharing all of this stuff. Like there is that mental block when it comes to simplifying or sharing very intentionally or having that kind of confidence. And so while I feel like we like could say it a million times over, like it is still something where it's like, okay, like the more you hear it, hopefully the more you truly believe it and are able to take that next step and kind of cross that mental block, because it makes the world of a difference. And like you said, you could have the same price point, but having that confidence to back it is what's going to get you to book those couples.
Yeah. And then I think going on from there, as you build this confidence, is like, do not stop learning and trying to understand the market and how other vendors reflect their language, reflect their services and stuff like that with their clientele. Don't use that as a comparison, but use it as inspiration. Say, oh, I understand how logically what they're saying or logistically everything they offer, and the way that they communicate that with their clients. Just understand that. I think that's been one of the biggest things, is seeing how they talk with their clients, how they post about their clients, how they post about, the other vendors they work with, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, well, and it's even, I feel like listening to you talk on this podcast episode, like I can truly see like that through your Instagram, website, your work and everything, but even just like the way that you talk about your business and the way that you talk about like education too. I was like, you 1000% back yourself, and it's very like inspiring and I think really refreshing for like our audience to be able to hear that and like really almost like hopefully light a little fire into their businesses and be able to portray a little bit of that. And genuinely, I feel like we could just, I feel like we could like keep talking to you and just dive into everything, because it is so amazing just like getting to listen to you talk about the education side and the branding side of your business and everything. But before we close, I'd love to get your Instagram handle again, just for people to make sure that they're following you, can dive into your work, see what you're up to and everything, and to be able to contact you, follow along with you, and just kind of share into your business with you.
Absolutely. And what all the poor listeners don't know is that afterwards we're going to FaceTime for like 3 hours and keep talking about this. So it is Micah Cook Photos, kind of across the board for everything. Micah, MICAH, Cook, COOK Photos. That's pretty much it. And then my website is linked below, or linked in there, but it's micahcookphotography.com. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you. We're so grateful that you're able to jump on and really share with everyone all of this absolute gold. If you're listening and some of these struck you, like re-listen again, like really kind of let that dive into your brain and really dig in, and hopefully you can portray that into your business and kind of use some of these tips and tricks that Mike has been able to share with us today. But again, Micah, we are just so grateful that you made time to jump on here. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys all next week on the We Got You podcast.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the We Got You podcast. We would absolutely love it if you could take an extra minute to leave us a review and let us know what you think. DM us a screenshot of it and we'll send you a coffee on us. If you want access to an exclusive community, rad freebies, giveaways, and wedding referrals, then join our Facebook group today. Also, if you aren't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you're following along on Instagram at WeGotYou_podcast to stay up to date. We'll see you next week on the We Got You podcast.